didn't want to die. I mean, I didn't see much chance of living, but I was gradually getting frozen up.
For over a century, we've blamed an iceberg. But what if the truth is far more unsettling?
But there's one version of Titanic we have never seen until this morning.
A mysterious photograph, a canceled drill, a fire no one spoke of, each a warning. Buried beneath Titanic's elegance was a trail of overlooked signs, all fatally ignored. And then, over a century later, a forgotten photograph surfaced. What it revealed when zoomed in left experts shaken and raised new questions no one expected to ask. The illusion of invincibility. April 10th, 1912, Southampton. A crowd presses against the rails, breath visible in the cold morning air. At the dock, a monster of steel and luxury looms. RMS Titanic. Towering above the port, gleaming with fresh paint and brass, it is less a ship and more a promise of power, progress, and perfection. To board her was to defy nature. That was the belief, the myth. Titanic was fitted with watertight doors, cutting-edge communications, and steel bulkheads taller than most buildings. She was a modern fortress dressed as a floating hotel. The press called her unsinkable, and no one, not passengers, not officers, seemed to doubt it. But beneath the polished veneer, something darker stirred. Deep in Boiler Room 6, flames had already begun their slow, silent assault. A coal bunker fire, likely smoldering since Belfast, licked against the starboard hull, exactly where the iceberg would later strike. The fire was downplayed, hidden from passengers, and never fully extinguished. Crew rotated in secret to keep it under control. Some would later swear the steel had already begun to buckle. Still, the ship sailed. And on the morning of April 14th, just hours before the collision, another decision was quietly made. A scheduled lifeboat drill was canceled by Captain Edward Smith. No reason given. No explanation offered. It would have been the last chance for the crew to rehearse evacuation procedures. That chance never came again. Photographs from the deck that day tell a different story. Children laugh. Women in furs sip tea beneath bright lifeboats hanging unused above them. The gymnasium buzzes with passengers pedaling electric camels. Nothing looks wrong. That's the most chilling part. There were 20 lifeboats, just enough for 1,178 people, on a ship carrying over 2,200. But according to maritime law at the time, Titanic was fully compliant. No one questioned why a ship deemed unsinkable needed more. The illusion held fast. Titanic didn't go down because of a single iceberg. It went down because of everything we refused to see. The fire we ignored, the drills we skipped, the faith we placed in metal over caution. And even as the ship sailed into the heart of the iceberg fields, the ocean itself tried to warn them. And in that blind confidence, the world's most advanced ship sailed straight into the freezing dark, beautiful, invincible, and utterly unprepared. The warnings no one heard. By the time Titanic reached the open Atlantic, the ocean had already begun to whisper warnings, but no one was really listening. Between April 11th and April 14th, at least 6 iceberg warnings were sent to Titanic from other ships in the area. The messages came through the Marconi wireless system, crackling bursts of Morse code tapping out positions, ice fields, and drifting bergs spotted directly in Titanic's path. But Titanic's wireless room was overwhelmed. For much of the voyage, operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride were working under pressure, not from the bridge, but from passengers. The wireless set had become a novelty, a luxury service. Wealthy travelers queued to send telegrams to New York, announcing their impending arrival. And with the system recently down for hours due to a technical glitch, Phillips was scrambling to clear the backlog. That's when the first fatal message came in. At 9 p.m. on April 14th, the nearby ship Masaba sent a detailed ice warning. Dense pack ice, bergs directly in Titanic's path. Phillips received it, but never passed it to the bridge. He was busy. He never logged it. Then, at 10:55 p.m., another message came from the Californian. The ship was surrounded by ice and had come to a full stop for the night. When the Californian's operator tried to relay the warning, Phillips cut him off.
Shut up! Shut up! You're jamming me!
Cape Race was the land-based station in Newfoundland. Phillips was trying to push through more passenger telegrams. Moments later, the Californian's wireless operator, frustrated, turned off his set and went to bed. It was the last chance. At 11:40 p.m., Titanic struck the iceberg, an impact that would echo the failures of the voyage, the ignored warnings, the unheeded fire, and the absence of a lifeboat drill. Each misstep, once small, now erupted into catastrophe. On the bridge, First Officer Murdoch ordered hard starboard and reversed the engines. The ship veered, but not enough. Below the waterline, a jagged ice ridge scraped along the starboard side, ripping open 5 compartments. Titanic had been built to survive 4. As the crew scrambled to assess the damage, Phillips and Bride stayed in the wireless room. This time, they weren't sending telegrams for honeymooners or businessmen. They were now tapping out a different signal. CQD. Come quick, danger. A few minutes later, Phillips added another code, one never used before in a real emergency. SOS. Other ships responded, but most were too far away. The Californian was the closest, just 10 miles off. But with her wireless turned off and her crew failing to recognize Titanic's distress rockets, she never came. 6 warnings. One of them ignored, one of them silenced, and all of them too late. The Titanic didn't vanish in silence. It called out, again and again. But in the final hours before the collision, the ocean was speaking, and no one truly heard it. The moment of impact.
Well, you know quite well what happened. The ship struck an iceberg, and I, like all 7-year-old children, of course.
At 11:40 p.m., April 14th, 1912, the silence of the North Atlantic shattered. Lookout Frederick Fleet spotted the iceberg first. He rang the bell 3 times, danger ahead, and phoned the bridge. The command was swift. Hard to starboard, reverse the engines. Titanic began to turn, but not in time. Seconds later, over 1.5 million tons of steel met jagged ancient ice. Above deck, it felt like a gentle bump, a shiver. China rattled, a few passengers stirred. But below, in the black depths of the ship, the damage was brutal and immediate. The iceberg had scored a 300-foot gash along the starboard side, puncturing 5 watertight compartments. Titanic had been built to survive 4. Water surged in. But it wasn't just the ice that doomed her. Decades later, scientists began examining rivets recovered from the wreck, pulled from the seafloor in deep-sea expeditions. Metallurgical tests revealed a chilling flaw. Many rivets in Titanic's forward section were made of substandard iron, hand-hammered, brittle, and filled with impurities. In high-stress conditions, like a glancing blow against an iceberg, they shattered. The ship had been strong, but not where it counted most. Inside, chaos simmered just beneath civility. Officers struggled to wake passengers. Some refused to believe there was danger at all. Others dressed in full evening wear, assuming the evacuation was temporary. And then came the lifeboats. There were 20 in total, enough for just over 1,100 people, on a ship carrying more than twice that. And worse, some boats were launched half empty. Boat number 1 left with just 12 people aboard, though it could carry 65. Crew feared the davits would buckle under the full weight. They had never practiced. By 2:05 a.m., the last lifeboat was gone. Over 1,500 people remained on board. The band, led by Wallace Hartley, kept playing. Survivors recalled the final song, Autumn. Others say it was Nearer, My God, to Thee. We'll never know for sure. Below deck, engineers stayed at their posts, keeping the lights burning, the pumps working, buying precious minutes for others to escape. None of them survived. And at the bridge, Captain Edward Smith gave his final orders and vanished into the freezing night. At 2:20 a.m., Titanic's stern lifted high above the sea, then cracked. The ship broke in 2. The lights flickered once, then died. Moments later, she slipped beneath the surface, and the screams began. The world's most luxurious ship had become a grave. But the final mystery wasn't just in how Titanic sank, it was in why she was ever allowed to. Aftermath, mystery, and memory. The ocean was still again by dawn. The RMS Carpathia arrived hours later, pulling just over 700 survivors from lifeboats adrift in the icy dark. But the real weight of the disaster wouldn't be measured in numbers. It was in what the sea refused to return. Thousands of letters, heirlooms, photographs, lost. Families, broken. Dreams, unfinished. And yet, over time, fragments surfaced. A scorched life jacket, a violin case, a photograph, enhanced decades later, showing a man on the deck no one could identify. His name never appeared on any passenger list. Was it a stowaway? A crewman never logged? Or just a trick of the camera? That image, like so many parts of Titanic's story, is wrapped in silence. But not all silence is empty.
And only a handful of those are still alive to see the pictures of the ship as it is now.
In the decades since, we've found rivets that cracked, warnings never delivered, drills never held. We've read logs and survivor testimonies, examined photos with forensic detail, and each time, the story of the Titanic grows less like a simple tragedy, and more like a case file of preventable errors. She didn't just collide with an iceberg. She collided with human arrogance, with silence, with decisions made behind closed doors. And it's that story, the one beneath the surface, that refuses to stay buried. If this story made you think, don't let it fade like the voices lost that night. Share it. Talk about it. Because history isn't just about the past, it's a warning. And sometimes, the most tragic truths are the ones we almost ignored.